Welcome to SpanReads, not your typical rereads podcast, a 17-chart series where we reread the Cosmere and are giant nerds about it. Unlike the traditional reread style, we won't be going through each book chapter by chapter, but instead looking at different themes and the placement of the books within the wider Cosmere. This time around, we are changing up the format just a bit. Instead of 4 episodes, we will be doing 2, merging reactions and retrospectives with character relationships, which will have spoilers for this book and prior books in the series, and then tackling magic and Cosmere connections in a full spoiler episode. Today, we will be talking about Mistborn's secret history. Joining me is Mish.
Hello, also firstRainbowRose.
Jessie.
Hello, I'm Lady Lameness.
Rosemary.
I'm Kaymyth.
Kadie.
I'm Aon Ene.
And I'm Weiry. So, Mistborn's secret history. We're finally here. This is the book that kind of changed a lot of things because it's the most Cosmere-heavy book. But we're not going to be talking about any of that this episode.
No, instead it's just Kelsier's shenanigans.
Today, we will be having spoilers for Mistborn's secret history, obviously, and only Mistborn Era 1.
So, it's recapping time. The story opens with Kelsier using the 11th metal to see who the Lord Ruler could have been, but it doesn't help anything. He dies in a fit of bravado. Welcome to the cognitive realm, Kel. A man appears, surprised that Kelsier had let the Lord Ruler kill him. Kelsier realizes this is a god, so he does the most naturally Kelsier thing possible. He punches God in the face. Accusing him of doing nothing, Kelsier witnesses this god's physical instability. Basically, preservation is not quite all there. He's going... Kelsier observes other dying ska moving to the beyond and decides he's not going to let it suck him away. He decides to call the god Fuzz as he keeps fuzzing in and out and then reconforming. Kelsier wheedles and scams Fuzz into giving away more information, susses out the existence of the Well in Ascension and that the Lord Ruler moved it, and intuits that it would be near at hand. He runs for the well and convinces Fuzz to preserve him by connecting him to it. So he survives, but is also trapped. The Lord Ruler's spirit appears near the well when Vin kills him. Kelsier sasses him too hard to get any useful information out of him. And the Lord Ruler scolds him while Fuzz tries to give him the "you're dead" speech and then just goes beyond and goes, "F you all, I'm done." Kelsier spends some time being very bored. Very bored. So bored. He hears Ruin's whispers to the world and figures out how to ride the pulses out into the world and check things out. And then he follows the pulse in the other direction and meets Ruin, who is scary. Also, Fuzz's issues are getting worse. A drifter shows up, passing through the well on his way to visit the planet. He sasses the hell out of Kelsier and riles him up, making it clear to the fan base that this has to be Hoid. Hoid makes a dive for the well, and the two of them fight. To Hoid's delight, he finds out that he can smack Kelsier around and eventually gets through to the physical realm. Kelsier quizzes Fuzz on how the drifter /Hoid/Safandrius, because that's what Fuzz calls him, managed to transition, and learns that it only works on people who are still alive. Damn it. Kel is shocked when he sees half of Fuzz's face is missing. Realizing how little he understands about how the world works, Kelsier resolves to learn the truth, giving him a focus to maintain his sanity. You know, what there is of it. He keeps studying Ruin, catching glimpses of the world. Questioning a very discombobulated Fuzz, he gets some clues that he had a plan, but Fuzz, or preservation, as he eventually figures out, is technically dead. The power remembers who it was, but he's not all there anymore. While Kelsier is arguing with preservation, Vin and Ellen arrived in the well. Vin is set to take up the power, but preservation is upset because he knows she's going to give it up. Kelsier uses preservation's hand and knife to stab Ellen to try to get Vin to use the power to save him. Yep. That was Kelsier, but she's too selfless. She gives it up anyway, and in so doing, releases Ruin. Preservation leads Vin to the last nugget of metal. She feeds it to Vin, and he becomes Mistborn, and Pewter allows him to survive. Preservation then tells Kelsier, who is now free, that he had a very clever plan. He just can't remember it. If he knows she can't hear him, Kelsier promises Vin that he will find a way to fix everything. Kelsier explores, and Preservation points him towards a couple of people who are lurking around in the cognitive realm. They identify themselves as Chris and Nas, and know a lot more about everything than Kelsier does. Chris explains about shards and how Ruin and Preservation are but 2 of 16. She doesn't have what Kelsier needs to save the world, but she and Naz point him toward another potential source of information. The Weiry. Preservation shows Kelsier a glimpse of infinity, and Kel realizes that he can't stop Ruin himself. But Vin can. He resolves to go to the Weiry, not to ask for help they won't give, but to spy on and steal from them, because he's Kelsier. He stops along the way to rest and learns that he can talk to insane people, at least a little. When he reaches the edge, he calls for preservation, but instead catches Ruin's attention. Ruin tries to convince Kelsier that fighting is pointless, which leads Kelsier to suspect that he's on the right track. He finally reaches the fortress of the Weiry and sneaks inside. He learns that they plan to take up Preservation's shard after he dies fully. But Fuzz had told Kel that Kelsier wasn't connected enough to take up the shard, so they clearly aren't either. So they must have some kind of secret. Further investigation finds they possess a sphere of power that would allow one of them to temporarily connect enough to Preservation to take up the shard. Kelsier decides to steal it. So he waits until they set out on their expedition, follows them for a few days, and then begins impersonating Ruin, whispering ominous threats as they try to sleep. He then pulls the Dread Pirates Roberts with a cook fire soul and a stolen cloak, scattering them in a panic. He uses his ability to sink through things to convince them that their leader has been disintegrated and most of the company flees. Kelsier sneaks up on the leader, takes out her guard, and scares her into leaving behind the orb. He takes up his prize and heads back to the final empire. After days of running, Preservation's disembodied voice leads Kelsier to Phaedrix, which to his relief is full of living people. He finds the Drifter and out of desperation manages to warn Vin away from him, which of course is why Vin never talked to the second informant. Because Kelsier. He plays with Vin a bit, powered by Preservation, but Ruin interrupts and has a gloating session. Kelsier can't approach Vin again, as Ruin has his number now and smacks him down every time he tries. When Phaedrix launches an attack on the Colossus, Kelsier learns that their departing souls are human, changed into monsters by spikes. Preservation shows him more that people pierced by spikes are more influenced by Ruin. Finally accepting that he can't do anything with Vin, Kelsier leaves to try something else. But he's not gotten very far before he senses Preservation's death, and whose final words warn him that Ruin is attempting to splinter the power. So Kelsier uses the Weiry orb to take up that power until Vin is ready to do it herself. Which, of course, is why Ruin didn't splinter Preservation in between the god's death and Vin picking it up. So yeah, Kelsier has been behind freaking every single little mystery in the original trilogy that didn't quite make sense. It's been Kelsier all freaking along. And now we're going to sing a song. Who's been messing with everything? It's been Kelsier all along. Who's been tugging every little string? It's been Kelsier all along. His appropriation of preservation. It's most you hadn't noticed, and the beauty is the beauty, 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 beauty. It's too late for Ruins and to bring, now that everything has gone wrong. Thanks to Kelsier, frickin' Kelsier. It's been Kelsier all along. And he punched 80 too. Stretching his new legs, Kelsier does find he can't do much against Ruin's power, but he learns something disturbing. Vin is spiked. Kelsier interferes with Ruin's plans in Urto with Spook. After Spook pulls his own spike, Kelsier is able to get through to him through their shared connection. After Spook saves the city, he's injured badly enough for Kelsier to have a proper conversation with him. He asks Spook to get the message about spikes to Vin. He follows the messenger, only to bear witness as his brother, Marsh, under Ruin's control, murders the man and reads the message to Ruin himself. And at a vital moment later, when Marsh is about ready to kill Vin, and man, that was a brutal scene in Hero of Ages, but the vital moment, Kelsier interferes with Ruin's hold over Marsh just long enough for Marsh to rip Vin's earring out, thus allowing the mists to spill into her. The message was delivered to the right person after all. Kelsier lets go of Preservation so that Vin can take it up. And he watches the fight between Vin and Ruin, bears witness to Ellen's death. Vin's sacrifice then happens, leaves both powers loose. Kelsier is kind of tempted to grab one, but he's distracted by the appearance of Ellen's spirit, and together they watch Sazed pick both powers up. Then Vin appears, and the reunion is just so cute. It's adorable. And then Ruin's vessel shows up, and the fandom holds their breath, waiting for delicious tidbits of Cosmere lore. 80 says, confused, Vax? And Kelsier punches him, and then AT disappears. And the fandom cries out in anguish as one. So Ellen is stretched towards the beyond, and Vin makes the choice to go with him. She says her goodbyes, and Kelsier is left behind. Kelsier chats with Sazed a bit and sets him his ambitions on a new goal. We time jump to the end, where Spook is trying to learn how to be a king. He has a small spike made, puts it in, and Kelsier jumps out and goes boo. And he obviously recruits Spook to help him reconnect to the physical realm, because that is what Kelsier wants. The end.
Glorious as always.
Yes, thank you. There's nothing quite like your recaps.
But you've never experienced me sing during one before.
No?
Now
I don't think we'll probably ever experience it again, to be fair.
At least I can carry a tune.
Does anybody have anything they were excited about for this reread? Things you forgot about? Things you remembered?
something that Rosemary's recap finally clued me into, which I had not picked up on at all until now, is Goradel taking the message and Marsh finding him. In my brain, the person who always needed to find that message was Marsh, and I think that's still true. But knowing how much Kelsier was behind the scenes, and if it wasn't for Kelsier, Marsh never would have been able to take out the earring. It was also for Kelsier. The message was also for Kelsier as well as Marsh.
Well, Kelsier got the message going.
Yeah.
Kelsier's the one who told Spook to send the message, knowing that Ruin would intercept it. But and I'm not sure how he knew it would be his brother that would get it, but
yeah, I think that's the part that I more mean. Like the message was more than what was on the sheet. The message was also who got that message, and Kelsier needed to find out who got that message to play his part in it. So,
and the fact that it was Marsh was perfect.
there's just poetic justice right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there was a line there at the end where he tells Ruin, it's like, you picked the wrong brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You picked
I love
a good
that
one.
line. I love that line.
Imagine how destructive Kelsier would be for Ruin. Like if he had been the one working for Ruin, like
It would have been bad.
they would have been screwed.
Yeah.
Like, same reason that Kelsier should not hold Ruin. Like, that's bad.
Yeah.
He almost he thought about it for a minute. And
I mean, he thinks about holding both of them, doesn't he?
yeah.
Yeah.
Although I'm not sure that he could have picked preservation back up after he'd used that.
Well, it's tricky because, like, being a prior vessel of preservation probably gives him a pretty healthy connection to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was having trouble keeping a hold of it there at the end.
It was trying to, yeah.
Yeah, it did not like him holding it at all.
No. Secret History does hold a very, like, fond place in my heart because it was the first thing I ever beta read. It's funny because, like, I was recommended that I should reread Mistborn Era 1, but given no reason for it. I'm like, okay, like, I like these books, I guess I'll reread it. And then I got the opportunity to beta read. I was like, oh, okay, now that all makes sense. And oh my God, this book. It is, the thing I like about this book is it's really the first time where, like, the Cosmere was front and center. Like, Brandon doesn't hold anything back. It's like, yes, there's 16 shards, like, Chris is there, the Weiry are there, which we learned about this book.
It blew the Cosmere open for us.
It does. And it does also exemplify Mistborn in that, like, here's all of this information, and here's the stack of new questions you have because of all the other secrets that you didn't know were there, you now know about, but you still don't know what they are. I'm just like, it's good. I want Secret History 2.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm.
Please, Brandon? Please. We want some more.
I think that one of the scenes that I was the most remembered the most was the scene where Vin and Ellen and Kelsier all are talking there at the very end, because one, it made me bawl my eyes out the first time I read it because it was just such a sweet scene. And two, at least when we were first reading it, it was a very decisive, I think is the word, very polarizing scene because some people felt like Vin chewing Kelsier out was kind of a little bit out of character for her, and others were like, no, her chewing Kelsier out and being like, no, you're selfish still. You still have a lot to learn is very in character. And it was
I don't know that it's even like fully chewing him out. She's just being honest with him. And, you know, it shows some of her character development that happened after Kelsier's death, that she became so much more confident and sure of herself, and that she can see these things more clearly now.
The Kelsier that's there at the end isn't all that much different from the Kelsier that died. Like, he is still kind of the final Empire Kelsier. Whereas Vin has gone through several years of intense character growth at that point and has grown up. So I'm not surprised that she is more forthright with Kelsier, because she had a lot of time where she had to think through who he was and who they were to each other and how she would react to him if she ever did get that chance. Not that she would have known, but I think it makes a lot of sense that she acted the way she did.
Oh, 100%. And it's like, I've always thought like it was very in character for her, but actually rereading the scene, like it came across much less like chewing him out and more like just gentle chiding.
Yeah.
Because it's like, she doesn't accuse him of anything. It's just like, she asks him the question. It's like, how much of that was for us and how much of that was for you? It was as much a question for Kelsier to be asking for himself, then like I don't think like she was asking it for her sake. She was like, you need to consider this. You need to think about this whole scenario. Like, you do love. I just don't think you understand love, which is just such a. The whole scene is beautiful.
And it really throws into relief just how badly Kelsier needs a crew in order to stay on an even keel.
Which, by the way, I love him adopting Fuzz as part of his crew, and character interactions. Him and Fuzz are so great together.
Yep.
Pretty much everyone remembers this book as the mechanics book, and I remembered this book as like the book that opened up the Cosmere, and that was in my head. I kind of forgot how much I actually loved the relationships and character development in this one. It basically always fades out of my mind, but then as soon as I get back into it, I'm like, everyone is so sassy to each other, and I love this. This is Mistborn incarnate. This is exactly what it's supposed to be. Like, the changes in his relationship with Fuzz, like, Laras greets him just like, oh, I think you know who I am. I'm God. And Kelsier's like, okay, I'm gonna punch you. And it just keeps going in the best way.
And then as his fondness of Fuzz grows, he starts getting more and more worried about him as he starts realizing that he's not in good shape at all. He's like, oh crap.
And it's like, Laras is like, we knew his name because that's where Larasium's name comes from. And we got a little bit of Ruin's personality in Hero of Ages. But like, Laras was this big unknown, and then we finally get to meet him, and it's like, oh, you're just a cinnamon roll. Like, I love you. Like,
he tried his best. He was trying his best.
And it's always interesting to try to look for little hints of who they were underneath the shard's influence, because I think you can see maybe a little bit more of that out of Laras than you can from AT, because AT's just been almost completely consumed by Ruin. Yeah. And it's one of the disappointments about AT's appearance at the end is like, oh, we also get a glimpse of who he might have once been. And no, instead he's just like confused and, poof.
Yep.
That's it? That's all we get?
No, we get Kelsier punching him too. Because
I still wanted more.
There's not a lot of relationships to discuss.
It's really Kelsier and Laras is like the only relationship that, because this is a novella, like it's much, and it's a novella that takes place in the cognitive realm. There's not a ton of people around, so like it is so character focused on Kelsier,
and you get a little bit between him and Ruin. You get a little bit between him and Hoid, which is hilarious.
I was about to bring up him and Hoid because I do think that is a a fun scene to watch from the outside because they could, I think they both have the personalities where they could either get along great or hate each other. And it's just immediately gone down the they hate each other route. And that is fascinating to watch.
And if they had met under different circumstances, they could have been friends. But the way everything lined up when they met, Kelsier was just not having any of it.
Yeah.
Well, and the satisfaction Hoid gets from beating him up is always hilarious to read. He's like, oh, goody. And you can totally just picture him getting this like grin on his face that's like, and now I get to have fun.
I haven't hit anyone in millennia.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to disagree that they could have been friends. Because like, I think they just straight up like don't get along. Like, I don't think they're compatible. And also like, this wasn't the first time they met. They met in Final Empire. Like Hoid was one of the informants. So like Hoid knows who Kelsier is. Like Hoid does not like Kelsier.
But does Hoid not like Kelsier because he destroyed the pits and destroyed the infrastructure, or is it?
No, I don't think that has anything to do with it. Like it's that's a mild annoyance, but like I don't think that's the root of their issues. I think they're fundamentally discompatible.
It's also a scene where we see more of an insidious side of Kelsier as well, because up till now, like a lot of his murderous intentions have kind of been towards the bad guys, and it's just, I know when I read The Final Empire, I just kind of accepted it. It's like, yeah, you're killing the other people, but they're like on the other side. That's how the story goes. Whereas in this scene, he's like pretty graphic with his descriptions of what he will do to Hoid and being dead serious about it, and like really shows that those murderous intentions aren't good.
I'd forgotten about how graphic that he was.
I forgot how graphic it was as well.
And how easily it came to him. Like, he didn't have to sit there and think up something. It wasn't a plot or a plan there. He was just like, okay, I need a threat. Here, let's start rattling off this one. Easy as that.
Yeah. And I'm sure the social isolation was a mitigating factor here, but that stuff's still all kicking around in his brain. It's just closer to the surface right now.
But like, I think they fundamentally bring out the worst in each other, because like this book also like brought into text things we knew from the annotations in Words of Brandon, because Brandon had said in Mobs that like, oh, Kelsier and Hoid don't get along. We didn't know what that meant until this book is like, oh yeah, like no, they do not get along at all. But like we did know that like Kelsier stuck around after death, and that like he like held preservation briefly, but now we actually got to see it and what that means.
I'm curious, for those of you who were around at that point in time and getting those wobs, whether you felt like that diminished your view, like your reading of the book, because you already knew those things.
It didn't really affect me because like I am a Journey Before Destination reader. Like spoilers like don't inherently ruin the experience for me. It's like I was excited to see like, okay, like I know he's going to pick up preservation eventually. Like how's that going to work? So like I was just excited to be seeing that sequence of events. Okay. The fact that I already kind of knew how it ended. Well, it's not too different from knowing that like, well, like Vin is going to take up the shard eventually too. Like harmony is going to happen. We know the ending. And it's like, that wasn't really a factor for me. I'm trying to remember to like my brain 5 years ago. I don't remember it really being a problem for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar boat in the most of the time. If I'm avoiding Brandon spoilers, it's just because I want to have the fun of trying to figure out his twists before they happen, which I never do, but that's really it. But it doesn't like inherently ruin the story for me if I know something ahead of time. And I've been spoiled on juicy things before, and I've been like, oh well. So it didn't really bother me that much.
For me, Secret History came out after Bands of Mourning. So we knew what the big ending was going to be that I'm trying to dance around because spoilers.
Yeah, if I had read those in the wrong order, then I would have been upset because that would have ruined a twist. It's if the spoiler ruins a twist, then I'm annoyed. But I don't think any of this really messed with any major twists.
Came into this way after basically everything, and I literally don't even remember when I learned that Kelsier was still around. It's just a piece of knowledge that has always been out there in my brain. I don't remember where I learned most of this stuff back in like 2017, 2018.
I came in after Secret History come out as well, and I think I'm the complete opposite of Aon and Kaymyth in that if I had learnt beforehand, it would have changed how I viewed Secret History, because like I really liked Kelsier in Final Empire and was really, really upset when he died, like really sobbing on my couch, upset. And to go into Secret History and to open the book and the first page says the name Kelsier, that was such a moment for me that like I just wouldn't have had if I had known beforehand that Kelsier had survived. So it's just interesting how these things affect different people.
That is a very good point. Like knowing the possibility of like there being future Kelsier stuff, but like opening it and like seeing it as Kelsier like was a surprise to me too. Like I didn't know what Secret History was gonna be when I first read it. So it's like I was also very excited because I'm like oh, like we're getting that story. Like going back to like spoilers not bothering me, it's like I think I mentioned in Hero of Ages that like I got spoiled on like Sazed becoming Harmony like when I was reading Final Empire. So it's like, yeah, like spoilers, unless I'm making a concerted effort to avoid them, spoilers don't bother.
Yeah, that would have upset me because that's spoiling a twist. But
yeah, I have to say the other scene that I loved in this is Kelsier playing Ruin's ghost and just torturing the Weiry.
It was hilarious.
It's
classic
so,
Kelsier.
Just infiltrating the Weiry in general. He's like, okay, let's go ahead and scale the wall and sneak around and cause as much trouble as possible. And he just has his absolute confidence that it's going to work. He's like, yeah, of course it's going to work. Of course it's going to do what I'm going to get what I want out of this.
And when he like dives down into like the ground and just like gets it so his mouth sticks up and he talks, and I'm just like, that's such a weird scene. And it's like anybody who can see what's going on is just like, that's hilarious. But like for like the poor Weiry who don't know what's going on, it's terrifying. The difference between comedy and horror is viewpoint. One thing I did forget about is how much I do like the character of Kelsier. Like it was fun seeing him again. Like he's a great character. I don't like his choices in life and unlife, but it is a fun read.
So one relationship that I wanted more of it, but I did like what we got, was Kelsier and Ruin, and not just their interactions, which they had some good interactions. Not just that, but Kelsier's kind of reaction and not development, but the way he takes in the news that he's connected so much to Ruin, and just that realization, and then interacting with Ruin after that. I wanted more of that, where he has to deal with the fact that his connection is to this, and that's the kind of person he is. And I'm interested if we're going to possibly get more of that in the future. I don't know, but it would be cool to see more development along those lines, I think.
Kelsier coming to accept the fact that maybe he's not as much of a good guy as he thought he was.
Also, Ruin smirking and Kelsier going, dang it, do I look that insufferable?
Yes, Kelsier. Yes, you do. But we love you for it.
Oh, we love you for it.
I also want to give props to Brandon for a lot of like the descriptive language in this book, because there are a number of like really fascinating scenes, like the moment where Kelsier like kind of like dives into the well and Ruin notices him for the first time. It's like the imagery of like this great, it's not a great eye, but it's like it has that feeling of like he's being observed, and it's like the shifting. But also like both shards get this really beautiful poetic description that I just want to read off. For Ruin, this force was time infinite. It was the winds that weathered, the storms that broke, the timeless waves running slowly, slowly to a stop as the sun and the planet cooled to nothing. It was the ultimate end and destiny of all things. Contrasted to preservation, it's like the infinity of a note held perfectly, never wavering. The majesty of a painting, frozen and still, capturing a slice of life from a time gone by. It was the power of many, many moments compressed somehow into one. And it's like shards, it's like we focus so much on like the singular word that is their intent. Where it's like they are so much more. They are broad. Like they need poetry to describe them adequately. Like these are the first descriptions like that we got for any of the shards. It's just like, I want one of these for all of them. Come on, Brandon. I want all of them.
Does anybody have anything else they can think of?
More Chris and Naz on screen, please.
Yeah, I think we're starting to get to the things we want full Cosmere spoilers for.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. You can find us at 17th Shard for all the news, discussion, theories, and fun you could ever want. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud. You can leave us a review on iTunes. You can subscribe on YouTube. And you can also support us on Patreon. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.